Yes, a lot of big influences. Interestingly, in my book and in my consulting, the psychologist that I use a lot now, his name is Dr. Clare W. Graves. He's a developmental psychologist who really has helped me and a lot of the people I work with understand the different ways that people look at the world, different worldviews that they confront, so that they can communicate in a way that really helps to overcome cynicism in different groups who don't share their enthusiasm. Correct. Correct. What I've been doing is taking a lot of Graves' groundbreaking research. He spent 40 years collecting data, which kind of helped him see how people's minds evolve over time.
Okay.
And this research has already been used around the world to help solve some pretty vexing problems. For example, in South Africa, apartheid, Gravesian consultants went in and color-coded a lot of the different systems of pre-apartheid, apartheid South Africa. And then when they removed that policy, they made sure that the systems were designed so that they would speak to the unique needs and ideas and beliefs of the different constituencies that made up that country. So there wasn't a huge civil war like a lot of people had predicted. One of the main reasons was the Graves' research. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. For example, they took the banking system and they broke it up into different banks which were uniquely suited to serve a different worldview. It's pretty radical stuff, and to bring it down to earth, I think the real idea that makes it hit home is the idea of values, a person's values.
Yep.
A lot of times when people talk about values, they think like family values, traditional values. What I'm talking about is this idea of a person's core values, what is important to them. Because a person's core values determines what they pay attention to in a given situation. And these values evolve over time in rather predictable ways. And what Graves showed was that when you change a person's core values, you really change how the world shows up for those people. Now, you can't actually change a person's core values, but if you were to shift that, the world starts to show up quite differently. So once we understand these different levels of thinking, we're able to understand what a given person's going to pay attention to in a given situation. And then we're able to speak to that. So we're able to speak to what they really care about and to get their attention in a way that we couldn't otherwise. Well, the reason I find myself so drawn to the sustainability movement is that you have a group of people who obviously, like any human being, want to take care of themselves and their family, but they also have a vision of a world that works for everybody. And I have a soft spot for people who have a vision that transcends just their own, a larger vision like that. And I also have compassion for the fact that people who think that way are often very frustrated because they take their inspired vision into reality and they get eaten up by the wolves of cynicism
Right.
around them. So, this idea of the fact that I have a great idea but I take it out in the world and other people are cynical and they try to kill it before it has a chance to grow.
Right.
I've experienced that in my life. I think most people who've battled with idealism in their life have experienced that frustration. And I feel it's what the danger is that if that happens too often, a lot of times we become cynical ourselves. Yeah. So cynicism I see kind of like a weed, or it just spreads and takes over. So what I feel moved by, honestly, is serving that frustration, giving people who care tools to make a difference. Demystify the topic of inspiration. When we talk about inspiration, most people I've noticed have one or two responses. One response is say, oh, that's smoke and mirrors, that's a bunch of hooey, let's talk about real things. That's not real. The other response is, I love inspiration, I can't get enough of it, almost like a drug addict. So somewhere in between, the question got lost, what is inspiration? Where does it come from? And how can we systematically create it in other people?